Well, Aaliyah and Jillian, do you feel like of the three of us, and be gentle, do you feel like do you feel like we guilt trip you? Because it is not any of our intentions. I'm sure I can speak for all of us. We That is not our intention, but I'm really curious. Honestly, you have to be honest. Do you feel like you're guilt tripped by us?
I don't I don't feel it in that way. Not no. Because my mom's still really good at giving us the guilt trip, even though she's in the state of her mind that she is right now. She's still like, no, no, don't leave, don't leave. And I feel that you guys are more supportive and understanding, and you can identify the triggers that you were talking about. So like maybe there's a little bit of like, hey, where are you? And there's guilt from my side that I haven't been communicative or something, but I don't think it's like a guilt trip in the way that I was raised with.
Okay, so go into that a little bit more for especially parents who are listening and the guilt trip. Um, so you're estranged, you go no contact, and because you're tired of the guilt trips, because you just need the freedom, you just don't want to put up with parenting anymore, breathing down your back, put that some context around all of that for us.
Yeah, it's more like when I do choose to reach out, it's just like, I haven't heard from you in forever. Not like, how are you? What have you been up to? It's just like straight into like, you never call me. And then it ends that way. Like the conversation starts that way with like, I haven't heard from you. What are you doing? Like, why don't you call me? To like, it ends that way. Like, hey, I gotta go. I'm busy. Like, I gotta get back to work or something. I called you with the window that I had. It's like, oh, when am I going to hear from you again? How long is it going to be? I never hear from you. And it's like bookends that way. It makes it really hard to even want to like pick up that phone when I do have that window to call and to give an update. So that for me, it's like, should I even call? Do I even want this emotional burden to catch up with her? But she'll lay it on even thicker. Like it's like
It's like
even when
mitigating
she
when you want
yeah.
to deal with it. It's like, oh my God, do I have enough energy today to hear that?
Yeah. And so I have to, when you asked about the emotional at the beginning of the call, it's like I can only call when I'm a 7 or above, right? I have to wait till I can to give her a phone call. Even coming back from Portugal, the first time I saw her after her stroke in the hospital, she was like, yeah, when you were in Portugal, you didn't call me once. Like she was still that coherent after that to know, like when I reminded her that I was in Portugal for 3 months, and she's like, yeah, I didn't hear from you once. I was like,
She was keeping
she
score. She kept score
she
of that.
was, yeah. And so I was like, well, blame it on Stephanie because I told her to download WhatsApp. I didn't have a way to call you.
Nice way to fix that on
So yeah,
Stephanie.
I blamed it on my sister. But yeah, so now it's a little different now because, and then I have built up more of a thicker skin for it, but it's hard. It is definitely more of a burden. Like it feels more of a burden when I'm ready to call her. So I do have to wait till I'm emotionally like not exhausted and I'm not like spent that day. Because if not, it's just like either we would end up getting in like disagreement and hurt each other's feelings by saying something. And that's not what my intention. I want to catch up with her, let her know what's going on in my life. So yeah, I did take some emotional space, I think, from everyone.
You need that. Everybody needs to do that. You
I want to
know.
point out something that Aaliyah said real quick. When I choose to speak to you, or like when I choose to reply to something, and I think that's highly important that we also recognize that communication is a choice. And hearing, I hope that people are hearing the fact that like it does feel like a burden, especially when there's so much negativity and so much blame. Like I'm gonna take this time to also respond to that question of like, do I ever feel guilt tripped? No, I don't feel guilt tripped by you guys. But this morning, when I was responding to share, I'm going to call this out on myself. I did get triggered a little bit because it was something that my mom would do where, like, if something would happen, my mom used her health and her like anything, like any accident, anything to guilt trip me and be like, well, you weren't there and you didn't talk about it. So I felt triggered. And that's also why I brought up my emails, because I was like, no, I was there. So for me, I don't feel guilt tripped, but I do think that it's important to know that there is a choice, and that choice gets a lot harder when it's constantly brought up and we're constantly berated over and over and over again about, oh, well, you never talked to me. You didn't take the time to call, like blah, blah, blah. Because my grandma does that same stuff to me. Like every single time I have talked to her within recent months, and I know I've touched on this in previous roundtables of, I dread seeing her name pop up on my phone just simply because it's going to be something that I didn't do enough of. I wasn't good enough. I didn't call her enough. Even if I call her every day, it wouldn't match up to her standards for me. I would never meet those expectations that are set upon me for communication. And that's really difficult, because then in a way, like, sure, my mom has passed away, and I know that my grandma in a weird way has correlated me with her, so I'm a stand-in for her. And in a way, it almost feels like then there's double the pressure of making sure that like I'm triaging her needs while also like making sure that I'm in communication enough. But like, when is there time for me? So I would go months without speaking to her, and like it was pretty funny. There was one time where I was hanging out with my aunts and everything, and she called me, and I was like, I'm with them. I'm not going to pick up. It went in a circle of her calling me, to Aaliyah, to Stephanie, to then like back to me. And it was just very interesting to watch, because she has just like this little rotation. I feel like, you know, the Wheel of Fortune where they spin it. It's like, who's it going to land on? I'll start with them and then I'll try everybody else. But at the same time, then you'll pick up and it's like, oh, well, what are you doing? Why are you with them? Like, so nobody can answer. And it's like, oh my God, that dread, the anxiety I feel when I think about calling sometimes is so hard.